tune. I really do. It just you don't headbang like this. You got to go side to side whenever you hear it. That's what I think. That's what I think when I hear it. Welcome. Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our leftist sports show on the TIR YouTube channel, Beyond the Red Zone, where my lovely co-hosts and sometimes me discuss sports from a left perspective. There have been many obstacles keeping us from doing this show on a regular basis, so it is good to finally be back kicking off the new year with a pre-recorded version of the show. We're going to try to do more of these live because last time we did a live show, the normal show host, Matt, could not make it. So Pascal Robert filled in, and we had a great turnout of the show. We also had a lot of calls, even some new callers. So definitely want to keep the call-in segment of the Red Zone going. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. As far as TIR goes, we'll be back live this Thursday doing our bi-monthly news show, Revolutionary Reckoning, with Matt and David of Left Reckoning. Also, we've added Philosophy for the People, featuring Ben Burgess every Sunday. Gaming Materialist is coming back, as well as another show with Varn and Jean called Nailing It Down, a history and Marx-based show. So we have you covered here at TIR. If you're enjoying what we do here, please give the show a like. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell if you also want access to all the other things that we do, like our fantasy football league, where Mac will tell us who's the champion, and movie night, and the call-in segment of the regular show. There's only one way to do it. That's become a patron. Wherever you are watching or listening to the show, there are links in the description to do that. It is patreon.com/Bitter Lake Presents. All that being said, let me bring in the man of the hour, my favorite leftist sports, favorite sports talk person. I don't want to put a tag on it because that's just BS, right? He doesn't need a tag. And we're both a little heartbroken, him a little more than me, because I am a fan of the Pac-12, or now again the 10. Stanford's kind of I am Bronco fan, John Elway fan, so of course I'm a Stanford fan. But I love watching SC. I love their young quarterback who won the Heisman this year, is it Caleb Williams? But Jesus. Lincoln Riley is good at one thing, and that is choking. And I don't even want to. I was afraid to contact Mac and Marcus over the Ohio State loss. So please welcome, from You Don't Know History, Mac.
What's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Happy.
Yeah, it has been. Yeah. So let's just put it this way. Our fantasy football league pissed me off real bad about 3 weeks ago when I lost by like 2 points and got relegated to the consolation bracket rather than the actual playoffs. But we can't always get what we want. But I did finish better than you. So that's for me. That's what we call a win.
Get your hand off my penis!
But right now I'm down a point in the consolation bracket, but I had Josh Allen as my starting QB. So with everything that happened, it looks like ESPN is going to extend the league a week.
Ooh.
I mean, I don't know how they're going to do that.
I don't. Have they even mentioned? Because I wanted to start the show off with talking about the Hamlin injury. Let's dive right in.
Yeah.
You and I have both watched sports for a long time. I was a serious football fan at 9 years old. 1986 was the year for me to become a very serious football fan. And my wonderful grandmother took me to a place. We have a place, I don't know if you have them where you're from, called the Grocery Outlet. You have Grocery
No.
Outlet?
Mm-mm.
Grocery Outlet is where you can never get the same thing twice.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those places. It literally is like it's called a Grocery Outlet bargain market. Like it's closeouts for stuff that don't make sense. Ketchup from Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah. I mean, we actually had a place like that similar because like we had the West Side Market, which is like an open air market on the west side of Cleveland, and it always smelled amazing. You had like all these food, like these proteins from everywhere, these veggies from everywhere, and then not too far down, you had a place like that. It was like odd sized stuff as well.
Yes.
So it's like, say the average ketchup bottle is 50 milliliters. Well, here you're going to get 140 milliliter bottle of ketchup, right? Like
it's like not quite Costco, but sometimes there's like the big thing. It just random stuff. And in this place, they had this book. It was a coffee table book, and it's called Super Bowl by the Bay, and it was a commemorative book for the 84, or I guess it would have been 85 Super Bowl. The Niners playing the Dolphins that year, because it was a rare occurrence that the Super Bowl was happening in a non-NFL stadium. It was happening at the Stanford Stadium. And it went through just these gorgeous pictures of every Super Bowl from 1 to whatever one that was. That was probably like 20. No, that would have been, I don't remember the number. If anyone watching remembers the number, I can't remember the number. But it had the statistics of every game.
Okay.
And I studied that book. Every day, I read every statistic in that book. I could probably tell you how many yards a quarterback threw for from Super Bowl 1 to like 15.
Yeah, the same thing with those types of like statistical. Because like for me as a kid, I wanted to sound smarter than the adult. So I figured if I knew the stat, a leg up on them, because like, you know how it is, your uncle's in the back, like, no, I'm pretty sure because I was at that game. I was at that game. And it's like, no, Jim, you were sitting here on the couch watching the game. No, I was there. And I'm pretty sure he threw for like 500 yards. And then you just pipe up as like a 9-year-old, like, nah, dude. It was like 285. He had 2 touchdowns. Like
Garcia didn't do it that day.
Yeah, he didn't have it in him. He didn't have it in him. He'd only been removed from Canada for about 2 years off of a great stint in Edmonton with the then Eskimos, now the Elks. Like shit like that.
So that for me, I was a football fan. I begged my grandmother for how the JCPenney catalog came out, or the Sears catalog came out, and you would just look at it.
Yeah.
You knew you wasn't gonna get hardly anything in it, but you still looked at it. Well,
that's right. Circled everything
you
wanted.
Circled it. And kept circling it.
Mm-hmm.
The woman had mercy on me and got me a complete set of the 1986, 87 Topps football, and I stuck my hand in the first card I pull out. And if you're a collector, and if you're a person of around me and Mac's age, and you're late 30s, mid 40s, you know when you got the complete set, there was no packages to unwrap.
Yep.
You just got your hand in there and you got card. I stuck my hand in. What's the first card I pull out? John Elway.
No way.
Yes.
That's meant to be at that point. That's just meant to be.
So I was after that. He was my dude. And then that book also, of course, went into the history of Stanford quarterbacks that were in the NFL. So it talked about Plunkett and then Elway. By the time the book came out, he was going into his second season, and I think the Broncos actually went to the playoffs that year. So they're like, "There's this guy." So I kept reading about this dude Elway, and I had vague memories of the big game where there's what's his name, Kevin Moen, the spike at the end where he hits the band member.
Mm-hmm.
What people forget is why that was so like dramatic was that Elway had brought Stanford back. They kick a field goal to take a lead. with like 1 second left on the clock. Like, and that's what Elway, and as an Ohio State fan, Stanford used to play against Ohio State in the regular season. And those were big games because there's a few people from that team, that 82 team that went on to the league. But I think James Lofton was gone by then, you know. We're talking about like Darren Nelson and John Elway trying to beat, you know, a very stocked Ohio State team. And those were some big games. Their quarterback actually ended up playing for the Bears. I can't think of his name for the life. He was Jim McMahon's backup.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
He had one of those hardcore Midwest names.
Mike Tomczak.
Yep.
The minute you said hardcore Midwest, I was like, that's fucking Tomczak. That's exactly who that is.
But in all these,
it was Tomczak or something like that. It was very
yes.
It was like you said, it was a very ethnic, very Midwestern name, and he looked very, very Midwestern. And by that, he had like the basic 80s white kid haircut, and he was as pasty as like, you know, a clear, you know, newly painted wall. Like that man was terrified of the sun. You know, like he
could have been a vampire. Could have been Tomczak.
Well, then he should have put up better stats then.
All those bad. Put in Tomczak. Get this guy out of here. Put in Tomczak.
Literally ripped a guy's head off and then completed 90% of his passes for 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, why aren't we playing him more?
We don't need the pretty boy from BYU. Put in Tomczak.
Yeah. Fuck McMahon. Where's Tomczak at?
McMahon was injured so much in his time in Chicago. I know every backup that played for the Bears.
Well, dude, isn't this the weird thing, right? Like when people talk about Jim McMahon, boil it down to it, because like he's like super well respected, right? And you know, he's got a pretty successful podcast, and people like call in to listen to him. Like people listen to him, like say the most wazoo shit about football. But it's like, dude, he only had 2 good years.
That's it.
And other than that, was a dog shit quarterback that was hurt all the time. Like, how do you celebrate this, dude? Like, you got to remember, at the tail end of his career, when he was like the journeyman, he ended up in Cleveland.
Oh, did he?
And people were like, "We got to play him, man. Look at what he did in Chicago." And I'm like, this dude is like 10 years playing days. You know, last year he was with the Packers the year before, San Diego the year before that. You know, like it was just like
Philly for a minute.
Yeah,
he was in so many places. I remember there was a game in 86 because it was after they won the Super Bowl, and that Bears team was still really good. They retained most of the players from that.
Damn near everybody, because you got to remember, NFL to free agency didn't start until 93.
Yeah, so that team was pretty well stocked.
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers. Also, people need to remember the leagues were very, very different. Very, very different alignment of leagues. The Green Bay Packers were playing the Bears, and this is back in the bounty-ish days. And McMahon had completed a pass, and the defensive lineman grabbed him and just dipped him on his shoulder. And I was like, oh my God. It was like one of the most frightening things. I remember saying he was down for a bunch of games. But I again, in everything we're describing, all the stuff we're talking about here, I've never seen, even college, and I've watched an amazing amount of college games in my years. I've never seen a player go down like that way. I was waiting for people to start talking about head trauma, and this is the effect of head trauma. And no, this is it looks like a heart condition.
No, I all the doctors, you know, when everything happens and you just see this poor guy go down, right? The first thing you do is trauma, especially when you look at just a few weeks ago, you had Devontae Adams from the Patriots, who Nelson Aguilar had to get the medical staff's attention to get him out of the game, because when he was lining up, every time he would plant his foot, he would do the wobble. Like Aguilar's like, he's not okay. Like, and the spotter missed it. The ref missed it. Like all these, the I guess the kind of backstops for concussion protocol and whatever. Like they missed it, and it took his teammate saying, "No, dude," and he burned a timeout to to get his buddy off the field, right? But when he popped up like that, because he made the tackle and he gets up, right? He didn't look like he got his bell rung, right? It wasn't that that kind of concussed thing. It was he was up and then he was down.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I know like the last thing I read, they were still running tests, but there's like when your heart is pumping, right? Like it's a cycle. So it ticks up and then it relaxes and it pumps your veins and arteries, right? But during that cycle, when it's tensed up and you hit someone hard enough, what happens to the heart is it doesn't untense. It just stays that way, right? And then you're going to have to go into like emergency CPR or I think even defib. I saw one of the doctors say they could have done that, right? But like that's an actual thing that like I had when I was in the service. One of my peers who was a friend of mine, they hit an IED, and essentially the dash of the truck hit the kid in the chest. And that's what happened to him. Like his heart stopped, right? Like they had to get him out and start CPR. But like the kid had a clean bill of health, well, as clean as you can if you are a infantry soldier in the United States Army. Because we were pretty much inveterate alcoholics and a lot of us smoked, like breathing in that beautiful burn pit, smell. Like it was all very good, right? But at the time, this is like a 19-year-old kid who was given a clean bill of health to get him in. And I know recruiters lie, but when it comes to like heart issues and like even asthma, the military shies away from that because it leaves them, right?
Oh, okay.
So, like this guy just like this was a fluke thing if these doctors are correct. Again, I'm not going to try and speak for the family or his representative or the team, but like a lot of docs are like, it's just a freak thing that happened. And it can happen. It's just like it has to be at such an angle, Jason, and at such a force and at such a time that you catch the heart when it's, like in the middle of that cycle and you hit it and it stops.
Well, right? let me ask you this. And I know it's so shocking right now. No one wants to say anything. The NFL, I feel, because I was talking to Ben Burgess. We were talking about it earlier today, and he was like, "I'm shocked they didn't keep playing the game." He goes, "I thought the NFL, somebody can get sniped from the from the rafters and they'll keep a game going." I was like, "Ben, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never seen that many players just in tears."
Well, you got to think, and remember in '92 when the Lions player broke his neck on the field, and he was carted off, and they were back playing 10 minutes later, and it comes out he's paralyzed for life at that point, right? Well, and Troy Vincent, he's the player management co-opted, and I hate saying that, right? Because he very well respected player in his day. Worked with the NFLPA for a lot of years, but now he works with the commissioner, right? The player management co-opted to kind of say, hey, look, we are taking care of players and we have this person that's going to advocate for you on the management side, right? And what did Troy Vincent get out and trot out this morning? Well, guys, everything you saw last night was fake. The league was not going to force the game to go on. There was just, we had to wait to process the information as we were getting it. Like literally the league was told the officials use the 5-minute mandated warm-up period and get him back on the field. And the coaching staffs for both teams and the players for both teams. So there's no way in hell we're going back on. That's
really,
why,
I felt that was a thing that happened. I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah, a lot of the players last night, after they, change out of their uniforms and get their pads off, they hit Twitter. A lot of it was mostly like,
Yeah, lots of
prayers and as you should when some shit like this happens. But a player, I don't know if anybody noticed, players are getting more testy with fans because of social media now.
Yes.
And I really believe they should, because T. Higgins, the guy that was tackled, started getting death threats shortly after. Right? Like people just getting on Twitter and being really shitty to him. And it's like, dude, he had nothing to do with what happened. He was just a
ball carrier,
kind of like an ancillary. Yeah, he was, so like a lot of players are like, no, dude, this is what happened. And a lot of people, and maybe they didn't want to be so out front about it. They went to the press and said, no, it was the players and coaches that were like, we're not going back on the field. And like I said, Troy Vincent, a man who was with his peers during his playing days, very well respected work with the Players Association before he essentially fucking, bailed on his peers to go work for management. Is the one trotted out to say, no, we had no intention of ever, putting the players back out there. But Brianna Parr, who is she's a sports journalist, came out and said, if you really believe that, then you don't know anything about the NFL. Right. And she hit the nail on the head with that one. Like the players and the coaching staffs literally are the ones that said, no, we're not doing this. And I respect the shit out of them for it. Because like, you got to think, dude, this is a sad thing. Like, this happens all the time in regular working places. Like, especially like Amazon just had this happen like a week ago where someone died and all they did was stack balls around this poor person who died at work. So they didn't so the rest of the laborers at this warehouse didn't stop working. Right. And I get that there should be outrage for that. I firmly understand that. But you know what you don't typically see day to day on television in prime time? People loading up packages at Amazon warehouses, right? So that gives Amazon, the corporation, a lot of ability to kind of limit how this information gets out. We saw a man at his workplace, something awful happened, and he almost died on the field, right? We should still feel, but like a lot of leftists out there are like, well, where's the outrage for the people at Amazon? Dude, I had it too. I was pretty pissed off about that.
You can do two things.
Yes, you can.
You can walk and chew gum.
Yeah, you can, you're absolutely right, Jason. Like, we can be outraged at both of these things without lessening. And he's a kid. He's a fucking kid.
He's like 24. He's a 24-year-old kid. My problem with that kind of rhetoric where people are like, well, the whataboutism of, well, what about these people that die? I mean, I'm like, look, you really think you can only have compassion for a thing? Yeah. Like, how dare you call yourself all these ists, right? I'm a feminist and a Marxist and a this is, but F this guy because I assume he's a millionaire when he's probably going to play a few years and sell cars.
Yeah, dude, he was a 6th-round pick, and he's worked his ass off to stay on that roster. But this is the Buffalo Bills, who are one of the most talented teams in the NFL with one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yes. Right.
So this isn't like him holding on to his job is not going to be easy. And like you said, I mean, we've talked about this before. The average NFL career is 3 years.
It's 5 minutes, man. And they don't make that much money.
No,
they make more than the guys at Starbucks and the guys at Amazon, granted, but then you're done.
Yeah.
27, 25, 24. Well, shit,
done. Say you only get 3 years coming out of college. You're 24 years old, most cases.
Yeah.
24 years old. And the thing you dreamed of your whole life is over.
Yes.
Where do you go from here? And I've met a lot of guys like that who played in, XFL 2.0, USFL, arena, the various indoor football leagues, that are literally like, the one guy I met was a defensive back for the Fayetteville, North Carolina indoor football team. playing indoor football, and I met him at the bank as a teller,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I make more money doing this than I do playing professional indoor football. And I was
Literally
just like,
risking my future health to even do this.
yeah, and that's nuts. And again, you already hit the nail on the head. We can be pissed off about two things at the same time,
Yeah, totally fine.
right?
Totally fine.
So, like, let's not belittle what happened. And I mean, I was a soldier for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know how to properly process everything I saw on multiple deployments, multiple
Mm-hmm.
training things, right? I can't imagine what these dudes who, again, as we talked, like the thought that a lot of these players are coming out of like hard scrabble, blue collar, inner city areas. It's not the case anymore.
Nope.
A lot of these kids, like you beautifully demonstrate, were the products of two athletes,
Yep.
premier athletes at the college level, that played professionally,
Mhm.
and now the kids going through the process of, well, I have to be in college for 3 years, to go
Yeah.
play in the NFL, right? Or, and maybe that's not the majority of the players now, but it's a large enough
Mhm.
chunk of the player pool that it's going to become the
Yes.
norm rather than the
Yeah.
exception within the next
Mhm.
decade, right? So, like, a lot of these guys haven't had a rough, like, upbringing, and then they see someone almost die on a field.
Mhm.
That is going to fuck you up. I
Yeah.
cannot imagine being T. Higgins right now, even though
Oh, yeah.
he was the dude that got tackled.
We forget it was in our lifetime that a player committed suicide after he gave up a home run to lose a playoff game.
Mhm.
Relief pitcher.
Yeah, and
You
you
know,
have
yeah.
you have also have athletes that, you know, like the young kid from Los Angeles who abused drugs because he didn't know how to deal with the new scrutiny he was under all the time,
Mhm.
and he ends up dying. Um,
Mhm.
and like I'm with you. Like, I can't imagine being these players now, where everybody feels that they are entitled to getting a moment of your time, even if that moment is to say, you know what, dude, you're a colossal piece of shit
Mhm.
because you only got me 6 points on my fantasy football team this week.
Mhm. Look, I'm not the biggest fantasy fan personally. I understand its importance in the growth of sports in general, especially when it comes to the growth of women's sports. I think fantasy plays a big role in that. To some degree, sports gambling too. But
Especially not even just sports gambling. I think it's the daily, like the DraftKings. I think
yes.
that has a lot more to do with the growth and popularity of sports now than like MGM in Vegas or Atlantic
Oh
City,
God, yeah. Oh
right?
God, yeah. Yeah. The apps, the legalization of it across the board everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you look.
Um,
I don't know if you saw, but Ohio legalized sports gambling. Guess who was tabbed to place the first bet?
Bernie Kosar.
Pete
Oh, Pete
Rose.
Rose.
It was Pete Rose. Placed the first bet in legalized Ohio sportsbook history.
So is he getting in the Hall of Fame now?
Honestly, I think if you looked at the Hall of Fame voting this year,
Mm-hmm.
until every baseball writer that's 55 or older dies and loses that card, he'll
Mm-hmm.
never get in.
He's still the number one hits leader of all time,
Oh
though,
yeah,
right?
and no one's taking that. No one can play as long or hit as well as he did. And you got to think Pete Rose never had a whole ton of pop, but
Mm-mm.
he was on base all the time, right? And he played 21 years with 3 different
Mm-hmm.
teams, right? And yeah, Major League Baseball contracts are getting longer, and that's something we could talk about on another episode,
Mm-hmm.
kind of about how the business aspect of sport is really fucking over cities. Case in point right now being Oakland with the A's. Um, but baseball contracts are getting longer, but guys aren't playing 20 years anymore at a level like that.
No.
Like Pete Rose was slapping 250 hits, the last year he played. You look at guys like Miguel Cabrera, who I think hit year 20 this year, and the dude only had like 110 hits or some shit like that.
Does a lot of that have to do with the kind of there's a lot less challenging of players at the plate that we saw probably in the Bonds and McGuire? I'll probably say from the mid to late 90s to now. And I'm not that heavy of a baseball watcher like I was as a very young man. But there is something to be said about constantly challenging players and intentional walks not being what they were. I mean, when Bonds is bombing home runs for those, his first maybe 3 or 4 years in San Francisco, even before the dirty bulk,
oh, dude, yeah. I mean,
even before the dirty bulk, he was still getting walked with the bases loaded.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of that had to do, remember, even before the, we'll call it the dirty bulk. I think that's the best way to put it, because like when he left Pittsburgh, he looked more lean and athletic. In those first few years in San Fran, you could tell like the dude was putting in work in the gym. And then after those, like, what was it, after probably his 5th season, in San Francisco, he looked like a fucking black Incredible Hulk, right? It's just like.
And as a baseball fan, Mac, as a baseball fan, loved every minute of it.
Oh, dude, the thing is, this is what kills me about the hypocrisy of these fucksticks at like the Baseball Writers Association of America, who pick Hall of Fame players, right? It saved baseball.
Yeah.
Like the steroid era saved baseball.
Yes.
Like when Randy Johnson's on a TV, one of the least charismatic people in fucking Major League Baseball, that
also
was
one of the ugliest men alive.
Oh God, yeah. No idea how that man ever got laid, but he's married with children.
Playing baseball.
Yeah, but like he said, chicks dig the long ball, or maybe that was Greg Maddux. I can't remember the commercial, but it was a Nike commercial, right? And people just dug the long ball, man. After the strike in '94, which essentially killed baseball in Montreal,
it killed me.
I
was like, I don't want to watch this anymore,
dude. I'm a Cleveland fan. We were in 1st in the Central and number 2 in the AL. Like, fuck, you're gonna take this from me after, like decades of just mediocrity and worse. You're going to take this from me. Like Montreal, people don't realize Olympic Stadium was a fucking shithole.
Yep. That's where Dave Dravecky breaks his arm, never plays baseball again. He actually loses it after that. Yeah.
Well, that was more to the.
That was cancer.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the tumor that destroyed the bone density. But it was an absolute shithole, and the players hated playing there. But when the strike hit in '94, Montreal had the best record in baseball and was filling that stadium up. And the strike hits. And
where do they move again?
They're now the Washington Nationals, my friend. And now keep in mind, what was it? 01 contraction supposed to happen.
Wait, say that again, because you cut out.
Oh, the contraction made. Look, Bud Selig makes a decision. We have too many teams. We have to get rid of 2 of them. So he immediately targets the Twins and the Expos. Right? The Twins just were run by a man named Carl Polhad, who used it as a personal, the team as a personal ATM through the revenue sharing and all that. Didn't put a lot of money into the team. And you have to keep in mind, just 8 years before this, they won a World Series against Atlanta, right? But the managed to, who were splitting the season in Montreal and San Juan, Puerto Rico, swing this trade for Bartolo Colon from Cleveland. Like they're on the cusp of the playoffs. And then, they end up, the league steps in, they owns them for a couple years, and then they sell them to the Lerner family, and we get the Washington Nationals again. Right. But like baseball, like if anybody that's listening wants to read a great book, it's called Going, Going, Gone. And it's a history of the Montreal Expos. And it's such a good book. I couldn't put it down. I knocked it out pretty quick. But the Expos were wildly popular in Montreal when they first got there. And a series of really bad owners at the end kind of drove the fan base away from the team. But yeah, back to the original point, like the steroid area, it saved baseball. It made people want to get back and watch it again. It drew in younger eyeballs because baseball is the sport that literally has these old white gatekeepers you know, like that don't make it enjoyable to younger viewers. And that's why, you know, the new commish is kind of in panicking mode with trying to shorten the games because, you know, next year they eliminate the shift. You're not allowed to do that anymore. They're going to institute a play clock. So pitchers and hitters can only take X amount of seconds, you know, to get in the box or throw the ball. You know, there's a lot of kind of, I guess, quality of viewing changes for you know, fans coming up. And all these things were tested in the minors this past season. And I went to a couple minor
Oh,
league
wow.
games. And I'll tell you what, I live in the South, the American South.
Yeah.
I didn't mind only watching a 2-hour and 14-minute baseball game. Right? It was better than the 3.5 hours I was, you know, sitting out there.
So it did move. It did move a lot quicker.
Oh yeah. Essentially from the time that the batter gets to the box, the pitcher had 12 seconds to throw the ball. Right?
Wow.
So the days of the long, just like kind of, you know, the
Stare down. Yeah.
you know, and the fidgeting and all that, and
Yeah.
the batter taken for a million years with his batting gloves and shit. Oh, those days are done. Major league players are not happy about it, but bro, you don't need 3.5 minutes in between each pitch, man. Come on, dude.
But it's a rough. You have to really like the sport. You can't just go to a baseball game like you can a hockey game and not know what's going on. You know, not have some sort of personal relationship with the game to appreciate a 2-1 baseball game.
Yeah, you know,
A
and it's just
3-hour
like
2-1 baseball game.
yeah, I mean, and I think that's what I like as I got into soccer in the last year or so. And I used to be that guy that's like, oh, 0-0 games, you know, as I sit there and watch baseball. But you know, when you realize back into 90 minutes, and
Yes.
you do have some stoppage time, right? But
Not
it's
much.
yeah, but you have 90 minutes of just constant back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And once I learned about the game and figured out like, oh, so this is why they do what they do, I was like, this sport kind of fucking rocks, guys. Like, this is pretty cool. Kind of like the same way, like with rugby, you know, like it's amazing to know that it's not just like it's very free flowing, but they have like actual plays that they have to memorize and they draw up based on the look of the defense on the pitch. And it's like, and again, they do this for 90 minutes.
And most people look at these sports and they just assume it's just big people smashing into each other. You know, what is football? It's just big people smashing into each other. Oh, that guy threw an interception because he's an idiot. But back to the Hamlin injury.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anyone say it yet, and I think because it's too new and everyone's still shocked and no one wants to say the wrong thing. But do we think maybe he might have had a substance or two in him?
I don't know. The NFL is pretty diligent with testing now. I mean, look at Myles Garrett. He had 3 sacks in week 17 last year and did not wear long sleeves on the field in Cleveland. He was drug tested the next day. Like literally, they had a surprise test, right? Like the leagues don't mess around with this. Like I don't know if you saw, but Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points last night. In Cavaliers. Guess who showed up at his house this morning?
Drug test.
Yep.
Hey man, great game, brother. Can you pee in this for me?
Yeah. Can you do you mind? You know, like
we want to see that crank too. I mean,
yeah. We gotta we gotta see how what do you pack? Because you you know, but like people don't realize like the leagues lean into this now because of what happened with the steroid era, right? You had guys like Craig Biggio who would end up going to die from the side effects of the heavy steroid use he, you know,
we should also add that it was steroid use coupled with all of the other things you can get free when you are a
and especially illicit drug use. Like, I mean, fuck, dude. My father worked security for the Cleveland Indians, now Cleveland Guardians, in the early 80s. My dad is not a terribly intimidating man. He's very tall, But you know what he can get his hands on that was wildly popular in the 80s? Cocaine. Right? So they made him like a security dude, and it's because he got blow for the players. You know?
And that's kind of, I don't want to say my fear, but when I was like, oh, that's a hard thing, I'm like, I hope I don't hope, maybe it's an undiagnosed thing like Hank Gathers. But I feel like in 2022, because of Hank Gathers and the few other players that died, I don't know if you remember back in, was it the early 2000s, a few players had collapsed when ephedrine was in fat burners and 2-a-days and all that stuff. I have known people that played in the NFL. They did use Coke. They're like, that wasn't smelling salts, man. Special teams guys. How do you get up for that? Adderall is probably easier to find in that. I don't know what its effect would be, but
well, I mean, I look at it this way, right? And I can't disagree with any of that. But I know so many of these pro athletes now that approach their physical maintenance as a science, right? Like they know that I have to eat right. I need to get X amount of hours of sleep a night. Okay, I can't, ingest alcohol from, August to February because it will throw off my, caloric intake, right? Like that's how they look at it. And yeah, there are players that are just naturally like physically gifted and ridiculously talented, and they can go out and do blow and go and throw 300 yards the next day, right? But I look at a guy like DK Metcalf, the wideout for Seattle, who looks like he's a comic book hero, right? The man's like, he's like, I'm a lot like Derrick Henry. I don't drink alcohol. I don't eat red meat. He's like, for me, a good night, like with my friends, is like we're playing like video games until 10. I have to be asleep by 10:30 so I can get up at 5 and do my first workout of the day. He does like the cup suction therapy to pull lactic acid away from the muscle. Like these are the type of things that these athletes are doing now, right? And it's crazy that they've looked at the scientific part of like physical fitness. Like, dude, I just started going back to the gym. I'm feeling really good. I switched from beer to clear liquor. Like I'm
is that
not
better?
I'm not yeah, there's no empty calories in my clear liquor and my soda water than there is in me drinking like 100 beers, right? But like I still want to go out and have fun. I'm just reducing the amount of time. I'm not going DK Metcalf, right? Who, I mean, he lives in almost monk-like
existence.
existence. But I mean, he knows this is what I have to do to be DK Metcalf in the NFL. Derrick Henry knows this is what I to avoid injury in a position where your career is only allowed to be 2.5 years, right? Like running backs, right? He makes these sacrifices. They do these things. So, I mean, especially with a young kid trying to stay on a roster as talented as Buffalo, I don't see it, man.
Not even trying to
I
get some
just
sort
don't
of
see it.
advantage, an edge. No.
No, I think he's just like, because dude, look at him. Like in the media guide for Buffalo, that dude is fucking ripped. He runs like a 4.4, and you got to think this guy's that size, runs a 4.4, still was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the crazy thing. All these athletes now, like going even into high school, are controlling what they eat. They are 2-a-days. They're doing all these things. And because of the idiocy of our generation of athletes, the guys are like, ephedra, hey man, that's some kind of like natural supplement, right? To help me lose weight. Bet. I'm gonna take 100 million grams of it and fall over dead from dehydration, right? Like, like these, because of our stupid generation of athletes, these younger kids are like, you know what? I don't have to do any of that shit. I just have to like meal plan. I have to meal prep. What's the best? What can I do while I'm in high school to, make sure I'm not as sore. Okay, ice baths, bet I can do that shit. You know, like these
I'll
kids are.
I'll push back a tad. I'll push back just a tad. I'm not disagreeing. And I'll take back the word pushback. I'll add this.
Okay.
There is also part of this same younger generation that is very, very aware. And we should also add the availability of this knowledge is everywhere. We can turn on YouTube videos. You still can't get the equipment and the personal training and the designed meal plan just for you, but a lot of the workouts, a lot of the thought process, a lot of even kind of the basics of the science is available. And one thing that I have been seeing, which is kind of shocking, as I've been on my quote unquote fitness journey as well, I want to go to the New York Live show and be able to walk around just the Speedo.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like at this point, I know a 6-pack's never gonna happen. I'm just gonna bulk up and get just bulky as shit and just have gigantic traps, dude. Like I don't want like the big like Gimli belly, but like
Yeah.
maybe you see my top 2 abs, but you can't look past my shoulders.
Yeah,
You know, like that's what I'm shooting for.
Yes, yes. I've been actually documenting it for the last 2 months now. I was like, oh, there's literally a physical change in my appearance. And so I'm seeing these young kids, high school kids, still growing kids, shooting up steroids because it's so acceptable. That's the whole, like, are you natty? Are you not natty? What classifies you as being natty? And that's been kind of an interesting conversation to watch. I am not a big time weightlifter by any stretch of the imagination, but I do enjoy working out. I did work at a boxing gym, so I'm really into certain workouts for different kinds of sports and things like that. So to see so many young people or just people in general feeling very, very comfortable using steroids, like the whole Liver King thing. I'm sure you followed a little bit of that. That guy, it wasn't just that he got caught; it was his entire
Thing was
steroid.
clean living, right? Like he was clean living, and then he was just like he gets busted saying he did steroids. See, like I'll be totally honest with you, man. I'm 41,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a good buddy of mine that started testosterone replacement therapy through the VA, therapy through the VA. And he's like, dude, talk to your doc and see if you can start. And, I was kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, like I understand like our sleep cycles are fucked up, especially mine. We're working a couple jobs, but like me, I would be exhausted, couldn't fall asleep, right?
Yep.
It's really fucking with my ability to get to the gym. And when I'm at the gym, my lifts are just so bad, like it's not even fucking worth it. I don't want to eat. I don't want to do shit. So I was like, you know what? Forget it. I called my doc up. I'm like, hey, can you take some blood and test my testosterone levels? And my buddy was like, listen, even if you're like 0.18 of a point lower than what it's supposed to be, the VA is going to be like, bro, we're starting you. Right. Because what a lot of people don't realize is when, as dudes age, our testosterone production gets lower and lower. But what a lot of people also don't realize, if you're somebody that's had horrible trauma and are a man, and it doesn't even need to be war trauma. It could just be you were sexually assaulted. It could be you witnessed something horrible. If you are diagnosed with PTSD, there's like an 80% chance that your body doesn't produce enough testosterone for you as a man. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, I deployed and saw a lot of horrible shit where I was from, so I'm like, I read this study and I'm like, okay, one, this has got to be all bullshit, right? And then I start looking at the docs who produced it, and it's all like widely, supported by their peers. And I'm like, okay, so there's some truth to this, right? And so I go and get my blood tested, and they're like, dude, you're like 6 points lower than where you should be at your age. So absolutely, we're going to start. So, I mean, I am going to have to inject testosterone into my abdomen, which kind of freaks me out. That's part of the reason why I never did steroids, because I didn't think I could stick myself with a needle.
Yeah, in the same hole.
Yeah,
Just gotta go
but
to the same
like
spot. Yeah, same spot. Yeah.
this is, actual testosterone to help me like, my body just like help replicate skin. So like I can heal from a cut better, like because my body is
Yeah.
just like, it's not firing on all cylinders. So like, it's nuts what um with the knowledge of that, going back to what you're talking about, like people are like, yo, I can up my testosterone production, like you said, through steroids.
Mhm.
And even at a young age, 15, 16, I had kids as young as 18 years old when I was in the military that would openly inject in front of me when we were deployed because we never tested,
Jesus.
right? And I'm like, guys, like, yeah, I know there's the chance we could die by gunfire or an IED or whatever, but like we're just here. All we do is lift weights and watch movies. Like you don't really need to go the chemical route.
They want to get
But
buff, man. They want the glamour muscles. They want to get buff. I saw this thing with this kid,
yeah.
Mac. He was like 17 or 18. He just wanted to try one cycle. And he got the worst acne I've ever seen on a human, to the point where he's constantly in pain and can't even lay down from all the like massive whiteheads
Oh,
that he has. And he said someone saw him at the gym lifting and hit him on the back and was like, "Hey man, good set." And he was just like, almost, he dropped everything because there was so much pain from hitting all these huge, painful pimples. And that's not all of it. There's so many other problems with that stuff. But to see young people who are not even done growing, like you said, "Hey dude, you're not even done growing yet."
yeah. I mean, dude, I my son is in karate, and my
Mhm.
my daughter does aerial, that ribbon
Yep.
kind of like stuff. And my daughter came up to me, and she's 13, so like the fact that she confided in me at all was quite shocking. But she's like, "Dad, I'm skinny fat," and I was like, "Sweetheart, no,
Oh
you're not.
God.
Like,
You're
I'm not trying to."
13.
Yeah, I was like, "Kiddo, like, no, you're not skinny fat." She's like, "No, Dad, like a lot of this is upper body strength that I don't have, so I can't do everything."
Mhm.
Right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's not being skinny fat. You just have no, my son's in karate and his coach is big on conditioning. So they don't just roll into like doing the katas and stuff. Like they do like push
Mhm.
ups and sit ups and duck walks, you know.
Mhm.
And my son's just like, Dad, the conditioning is killing me. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll start doing, you know, I have like 5 pound weights. I'm like, we're going to lift these. And like, it's
Mhm.
easy for them. And they're like, well, can we lift heavier? And I'm like, absolutely not. Both of you, you're 13 and 11. I had a buddy I played football with in high school, Jason, that like his parents started making him lift at like 9 years old,
Oof.
and he was fucking ripped. But you know what that dude could not do?
Mm.
Not suffer ligament injuries. Like,
Ooh, interesting.
like he was constantly like he always had like ligament pain. He tore I think his MCL his sophomore year, and then his PCL his junior year. Like
Jesus.
there was always something wrong with all the connecting tissue of the muscle, you know? Like the bones in the ligaments of a kid, they're not supposed to naturally form without you like putting
Yeah.
telling your 9-year-old kid, you know what? You're 74 pounds. We're gonna get you up to 90, 10% body fat. When their body fat percentage should be closer to 20 at that age. And
Why
then,
aren't you benching 125?
yeah, I need you to be benching double your body weight. Come
Oh,
on, you
you
fat
know what?
fuck. And it's just
I'm
like,
I'm
God.
very glad I found out that that's a myth. The whole you should be able to bench your body weight is a myth.
Dude, I am
Mhm.
bulky. I'm a wide set dude. For me, you need to squat your body weight, right? You should be able to at least do that. But like benching, so much goes into it that I would rather people go
Mhm.
lighter, but do it
Mhm.
correctly.
Mhm.
Because like 2 weeks ago at the gym, this dude decided he was going to be Billy Badass and decided he was going to go grab the 110-pound barbell or dumbbells.
Oh, you try to be that
And you
dude?
saw you you heard his whole pec rip. Um,
Oh.
like over the you just hear and this kid
Oh.
dropped the weight, and I looked at him and I'm like, dude, like in my head, I didn't because he was in horrible pain. I wasn't trying to
Mhm.
be that big of an asshole, but I'm like, dude, I handle the 80-pound dumbbells pretty well, but I'm not even like gonna touch those things yet. And I'm probably twice as wide in the shoulders as he was. You know what I mean? Like he had no
Like
business.
that's not how you're
doing
gonna
that
get
shit.
ripped, dude. You need to get
No.
muscle hypertrophy. You can't just
And
jump the
it's
gun
about
and get there.
exactly. It's about
You know?
form. It's
Mhm.
about doing things correctly,
Mhm.
so you don't hurt yourself. Period. And so like when people see me, because like my doc just gave me the clearance, and he's like, "Dude, just lift, like lift. No restrictions, just go and do it."
Mhm.
So even me, I started nice and light. I'm like, "Fuck this, dude. I got to get back into it. I don't want to hurt myself because if I hurt myself, I'm going to stop, and if I stop, I don't know if I'm going back."
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
So I keep it nice and light. Some days it's really easy, others not so much, but I don't care. Like I'm enjoying myself again. It's nice being able to do this again. But yes, kids, no lift light. And if you're 10 and listening to this, one, go to bed, and two, you don't need to lift weights right now.
And on that note, look, thank you, Mac, for hanging out with me. I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Hamlin injury. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this college bowl season. Are people excited for this national championship game was it Georgia against TCU?
Georgia and TCU, and before we head out, I'm going to tell you right now, this was the best college football semifinal games in the history of the CFPA.
I saw just highlights. Unfortunately, I couldn't see them. They blocked them real hard for us here in Mexico, the way I usually watch them. And what I saw highlight wise was exciting. Even I saw some highlights of the I don't know what bowl it was that USC played.
That was a Cotton Bowl.
Tulane.
That was a Cotton Bowl.
My
Yep.
goodness, my goodness. Again,
Oh, dude.
5 touchdowns. Caleb Williams, is he the real deal? Before we go, is Caleb Williams the real deal?
Absolutely. And on top of that, Kirk Herbstreit and Bob Costa, shut the fuck up. So he put "fuck Utah" on his nails. Who cares? Kids get pumped up that way, and he's 20 years old. Like he's playing football on, arguably the largest stage in the country. Just let him be him.
Yes.
He's a phenomenal athlete,
Yes.
and we're already seeing professional, NFL team fan bases that are like, we need a tank for Caleb already, right? He still has to play another year in college before he's allowed to come out.
Him and Bryce, what's his name? Bryce, the kid in
Bryce
Alabama.
Young,
Bryce Young,
but
who's from California.
uh-huh.
That should be Bryce Young at USC. And had they had an NIL when he was getting recruited, he would have stayed.
Dude, Jason, CJ Stroud, quarterback for the Buckeyes from Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, he would have stayed. These guys would have stayed if they would have had the opportunity to stay.
I think we should build an episode around that, because I don't know if that's the case. I think for a lot of schools, they're so good at putting out positional players, quarterback, wide receiver being the big two at Ohio State right now. I can see CJ Stroud leaving California for that, right?
You know why he would have stayed? Because Caleb Williams, I've seen multiple Caleb Williams national TV ads.
Okay, yeah, but get this. Caleb Williams also went to Oklahoma first.
Yeah.
He's a transfer. He's a transfer.
Divorcees.
All right. Yeah. But like, let's face it, Caleb Williams followed Lincoln there.
Yes.
But I think that's a whole other episode.
But a lot of big name quarterbacks in college football are from SoCal. The kid at Clemson with the name I can't pronounce.
Are you talking about Ukulele?
Yeah.
He just transferred. He's at Oregon State now.
Ooh.
And get this, his younger brother, who was like a offensive end, committed to Oregon.
Oregon?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. The like you said, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. Who else is a SoCal guy that's not playing in SoCal?
There's a couple of them.
I think the kid from UCLA is like the only actual SoCal quarterback playing in SoCal.
Yeah, but like even then, like I saw a lot of like 2 and 3 star kids playing for smaller teams. Like there's a kid from, I want to say Sacramento, that's a guard at Toledo. right? Like,
Mhm.
and he was a 2-star recruit, but he was all MAC this year.
Mhm.
Like, and I know you have to go, but I was talking to a couple guys I'm in a group chat with about Ohio State, and they like to throw out these other like ratings things, but I'm like, a 2-star in California is a 4-star in every other state than Texas, Ohio, and Florida.
Damn.
And
Damn.
that is no lie. I was like, look at 2-star recruits in California, and they're typically 2-star because they're an inch or two too short, or instead of a 4.4, they run a 4.5,
Yeah.
right? And they're a 2-star in California, but if they were in Nebraska, they're a 4.
Maybe
You
all
know, like,
state, starting right away.
mm-hmm.
No, we should do a show about that. I'm excited about that, and we will be back. Are we going to be back next week?
Yeah, what we do when you finish up tonight, shoot me a text,
Mm,
and then
okay.
we'll figure out a day I can like say I cannot be touched on this evening, so I can make sure when we say, hey, we're going to be live on this day, we're going to be
Yes,
live on
because
this
I
day.
want we need to do the calls again for the show. So when we come back, we will be doing calls. So thank you guys. Let us know what you think. I'm excited about this college football championship. Again, I hope this young man in Buffalo, Hamlin, is it Hamlin? Hamlin, correct?
Yeah, and the thing is, the dude's been running a GoFundMe for 2 years to raise money to buy
Oh
toys
goodness.
for underprivileged
Oh
kids.
goodness.
Raised $3.5 million since last night.
Well, I hope it's not all in vain.
Yes, dude, I want that kid to get up out of his fucking bed.
Yeah.
Take some recovery time, and then we see him on the field next September. That's what I want.
That's the Disney ending.
Yep.
Let's all hope for a Disney ending for this young man. We are out.